Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 The Players Championship. 2021, I should say. I think it's weird. It's weird because I want to introduce the Players Championship, but do you say 2021 The Players Championship, 2021 Players Championship? It's you got to say the Players. So I'll say hello, everyone, and welcome to the Players Championship 2021 DFS Pick Show. My name is Dylan Burd, here along with my co-host Glen Goodman. And Glenn, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, of course. It's been a couple weeks since I've been back on the show. It's great to come back for the Players. $15 million purse, I think, this weekend. I think that's more than the U.S. Open, the highest in golf. Just excited for the weekend, as I always am. It's going to be elite.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for this tournament. Obviously, it's like your fifth major. It's the unofficial major. Yeah. Like you said, really high purse. We got a ton to talk about today. Obviously, just a stacked field. We'll talk about the action last week first off. But first, before we get started here, like always, just wanted to remind everyone about Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight is an amazing place for player prop games. You could play player prop games for any sport. You could play it for the PGA. You could play it for the NBA. You could play for the MLB coming up. Go on to Monkey Knife Fight, and they will match your deposit 100% up to $50 with the promo code DUDE50, DUDE 50, and you will get a 100% deposit bonus up to $50 with that promo code. So be sure to check it out. Let me get this. I got this banner lined up that I just actually forgot to put up. But if we were doing a normal pre-recorded video like we normally do, I'd have it up in the left, and I can't find it. But yeah, anyway, check out Monkey Knife Fight. Great place. DUDE50 is the promo code. You can check it out in the link in the description below. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at sports_bird. Be sure to follow Glenn on Twitter at goody_21. Trying to get Glenn some more Twitter followers, trying to get him to be a little bit more interactive. Anyway, let's get right into it. And I want to start by talking about last week first. We had the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. And let's just say Bryson stole the show. I know Glenn would love to talk about this.
Yeah. Bryson was always a popular pick. I think you opened up 12-1. We knew Bay Hill was going to provide some sort of challenge to most golfers. The course played, I guess, pretty average, maybe a little bit easier Thursday through Saturday. And then Sunday rolled around, and it was the hardest round since 1980 in terms of field over par. And Bryson just, throughout the entire week, consistency at its finest. His long hitting pays off, obviously. There should be no one debating that. I hate the people that think he's bad for the game of golf just because he is working harder than other people at this craze that he's doing. You got to respect it. He's great with the fans. The fans love him. It's great for the game of golf. The casual fan will just tune in to watch Bryson hit number 6 at Bay Hill. It's just great to watch. When he's literally hitting balls into the rough, even he'll have pitching wedge to come out of it. It's like everything's a show. It's a spectacle. His putting is great, and it doesn't even get talked about. I mean, everything. Sure, he's not going to play the best golf every day, as he said, but he's putting in that work, and it's really great for the game.
Yeah, look, here's the thing about Bryson is that he's so controversial. Okay, he makes you feel something. Everyone's right, like you either love him
he's just kind of like weird, and it's good. It's good for the game.
You love him or you hate him. Personally, we on this Sports Bird podcast, our PGA show, we love him over here. This is a guy that we've been following, since the summer, since the restart. We were mesmerized as soon as he came back looking like a completely different person, completely different player. And he is unbelievable for the sport. That picture on from Saturday, that's a legendary picture. That'll be remembered for years to come. Him obviously trying to drive green on that par 5. And look, I think honestly, anybody who, hates Bryson is ridiculous in my opinion. This guy is unbelievable for the sport. Or I shouldn't say hates Bryson, because it's okay for you to hate Bryson. Like we were talking about, you could hate Bryson and hating him is good for the sport. But people who think that he's just like ruining the sport, that's completely wrong. That's BS. We all know that. He's very, very good for the sport, whether you love him or whether he's a villain to you. But look, just excited to watch Bryson the rest of the year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, I love this tournament. And once
let me add one more thing to the Bryson thing before I cut you off.
Go for it.
But if you actually listen to him in the interviews, pre-round, post-round, and yesterday in the winners interview, he gives such like meaningful answers to everything. He gives deep thought into it. One of the reporters asked him, I think it was the last question yesterday in his post-winners interview with the press. They asked him, does he have anything new scheduled that would like revive the fans this week, like he did at number 6 at Bay Hill? And he mentioned he was thinking about potentially, probably won't though, on number 18 this week at Sawgrass, hitting it to the 9th fairway. So I don't know what that's about, Bryson, but we may see Bryson do some weird, different antics on 18, a very hard hole. I think the hardest on the course this week. But just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I was, well, before you cut me off, I was going to say Bryson, just like after he had that picture taken, you know, the two hands in the air, you knew, I knew he was going to win. Like that was such an iconic picture. He had to win the tournament. But let's jump this week. It was a great segue there by you mentioning something he's going to do at TPC Sawgrass here. Let's get right into the players. Obviously, we have TPC Sawgrass, as I just mentioned, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, par 72, 7,189 yards, Bermuda grass. We have 154 golfers, a huge field. Again, this is like a major. Top 65 and ties will be the cut. So look, first thing that tells me it's going to be very difficult to get a 6-6 lineup this week. Yeah,
you'll probably see around probably 5%, 6% going 6 out of 6. Previous weeks, I think it's been 125 because it's been an invitational. So the 6-6 percentages have been a little higher than normally. And obviously you have the no cut event at the World Golf Championship. So this week you get the bigger field, so you're not going to get that as high of a percentage. That makes it more fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think me and you were just talking about this. Like, I think golf has settled in as my favorite DFS sport for sure. And that cut sweat is why. I mean, it's just every day is unbelievable. You're just those first 2 days, you're just sweating out. Are you going to get a 6-6? Are you going to get a 5-6? You know, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's going to be very, very tough to get a 6-6 this week. Now, to go on with the course info, past winners, 2020 COVID wins at -19. Then we had just kidding. But to go, obviously last year we had 2020. That was, you know, tournament plays the first round, basically, or half the first round. Hideki Matsuyama shoots a 9 under 63 course record, and then the tournament is canceled. So sucks for Hideki, but he'll be back at it again this year. 2019, the last time the tournament was played in full, we had Rory win at -16. 2018, we had Webb Simpson win at -18. 2017, Siwoo Kim winning at -10. 2016, Jason Day winning at -15. 2015, Ricky Fowler -12. Martin Keimer, Tiger Woods, Matt Kuchar, all former champions here. Look, we got some guys there that former winners that I think could do pretty well this week. But let's get right into the course info here. 4 par 3s, 1 par 4 that's 300 to 350. So you have one that's hole 12, 317 yards, 5th easiest hole in the course with a 27.3% birdie rate. Then you have 2 par 4s, 350 to 400. You have 2 par 4s, 400 to 450. And then an astounding 5 par 4s, 450 to 500 yards. And then 4 par 5s, hole 2, which is 532. You have a 38.3% birdie rate there. Hole 9, 575. You have a 29.2% birdie rate there. Hole 11, 539, 36.9% birdie rate there. And hole 16, rounding out the par 5s, 537 yards, 44.4% birdie rate there. So according to scoring, hole 16 at 537 is the easiest hole on the course. Anything that stands out to you when I read out the way the course is structured?
What stands out to me is that you can get winners from just a ton of different classes. So Rory obviously drives the ball very far. He's top 5 in driving distance, always gains strokes gained off the tee. Meanwhile, I guess Siwoo doesn't drive it that far. Webb obviously doesn't drive it that far, great with his wedges. So what makes this course really great, in my opinion, is the hazards. So ton of water in play, ton of bunkers, sand traps. So, you get your ball in the water, you drop a couple strokes. It really allows many different winners, I think, here this week. You don't need to be a bomber to win. You don't need to gain strokes gained off the tee at an insane amount. I know when Rory won, he was the leader in strokes gained off the tee. But you can, maneuver your way around and play steady golf, and whatever your strengths are that week doesn't have to be the strengths of previous years. So I think that adds a little bit of uniqueness to this week.
Yeah, I think we're so used to these bomber courses recently. Obviously Concession was a long course. Arnold Palmer, Bay Hill is a long course. Now you come in here with a shorter course. You have a course where driving accuracy is going to matter, not necessarily driving distance as much. I know you beg to differ with me there. You have your own opinions, but it is a different type of course than we have seen. That's obviously really good to see. So yeah, I mean, obviously, like normal, I created a model this week on Fantasy National Golf. I think that one thing that stands out to me based on the way the course is structured is if there's a par 72, strokes gained par fives is going to matter a lot. You got to take advantage of those par fives. Also, obviously, as I mentioned, that there's 5 par fours, 450 to 500 yards, strokes gained on par fours. That distance is going to matter a lot. And this is a week where I think that approach is going to matter a ton. Obviously, I mean, it always does, but I think that once you get to a shorter course here, approach is going to matter a lot more than off the tee here, in my opinion. And also, just a few things that I think matter here a little bit more than normal. I think wedge shots are going to be pretty significant. Obviously, you get a short course here. And look, per Fantasy National Golf, 200 plus approach shots are the most common on the course, which is interesting because that's similar to last week. But that being said, the approach shots are pretty evenly distributed around all the ranges. So, like I said, proximity 200 plus, that's the most common one, up at 21.9%. However, that's below the tour average of 22.9 for a round from 200 plus. So I think it's interesting that that's the most common shot on this course, but it's still less than the tour average. It kind of shows that these other ranges are all up, a little bit. It's kind of very evenly distributed. And I said wedges are important because, it's a shorter course. Proximity 125 to 150 is the second, most frequent approach shot on this course. 18.9% of shots. That's above the tour average of 17% of shots. And then proximity 100 to 125, also 13.2% of approach shots, above the tour average of 11.8% of approach shots there. So I weighted all those. I think that wedges are going to matter, but I also think that the proximity 200 plus will matter as well. That's just some other things. Any other things that you think are going to matter this week that are standing out to you?
I agree with that analysis right there. I think it's just going to stress my point before that many different golfing styles can win here. Strokes gain, so you're going to have to take care of the par fives for sure. I think Jim Furyk led par 5 efficiency a couple years ago when he placed really highly, or maybe even 2 years ago. So strokes gain, par 5 efficiency, and around the green, within 30 yards of the green. Also scrambling. All those things combined, I really think you get a good chance of getting some solid lineups this week.
Yeah, a few more things. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. A few more things that I added here to my model. I'll read out my full model after we just go over this real quickly. But you mentioned sand saves. I think around the green is going to matter. Basically, if you look at the course map here, first of all, there's a ton of water. So I think the driving. What?
A ton of water.
Ton of water, yeah. So I think that driving accuracy is going to matter. You can't be all over the place off the tee and hope to do well because you'll be in the water. So driving accuracy is going to matter. Greens, fairways gained is going to matter as a result. That's the stat I use for driving accuracy. Greens in regulation also going to matter here as the winners significantly finished higher in terms of greens in regulation in the past. Also, around the green, sand saves, those are going to matter as well. 3-putt avoidance or, strokes gained putting. Obviously, we weight strokes gained putting significantly less every single week. The reason why is because it's just so all over the place with everyone. But putting, obviously, short game is going to help you out a lot here, especially when the greens are tough, greens are fast. And then also, I will be weighting ball striking as well. Ball striking is obviously a combination of driving and greens in regulation. So I think I, kind of touched on both of those, combining them for ball striking. That'll be significant. So just to read off my model before we get into the different ranges here: 10K, 9K, 8K, 7K, and 6K, and then talk about the lineup constructions that we'll be having. Here is my model for on Fantasy National Golf for this week. Again, this is a Monday model. This is not something that is finalized by any means, but just my initial thoughts on my model here. I weighted strokes gained approach 20%, strokes gained ball striking 14%, strokes gained off the tee. I'm not huge on it this week, but I always weighted. I only weighted it down at 5%. Strokes gained par 5, 8%. Strokes gained par 4s 450 to 500. As I mentioned, there are 5 holes in that range. 8% 3-putt avoidance. I actually not 3-putt avoidance. I did strokes gained putting instead at 3%. Fairways gained 8%. Greens and regulations gained 8%. Strokes gained around the green 7%. Proximity 200 plus 7%. Proximity 125 to 150 7%, and then proximity 100 to 125 5%. What is your model this week?
Yeah, so I did a little different approach. I weighted strokes gained off the tee as the cream of the crop, 30%. So I weighted that at 30%. I think so. I was just thinking of myself before I made this, and I think we both love Justin Thomas this week. So at the World Golf Championship, Justin Thomas, he played well. He had an awful first day. I think he shot 5 over or something. And then his Friday played well, Saturday played well, and Sunday was a little bit, ho hum. He lost a ton off the tee, just a ton. So my analysis was just simply, if he literally gains average off the tee, he may beat Morikawa. He was just awful off the tee. I think he maybe lost over 5 strokes on the tee. But when Rory won here 2 years ago, he was the leader in off the tee. I think it matters. Bryson was probably the leader off the tee last week. Off the tee is my favorite stat. Second is opportunities gained 25%. So this just on Fantasy National factors in birdie chances within 15 feet of the hole, whether you're on the green or on the fringe. It measures that. So if Ben On has a 15-foot putt, it doesn't wait for birdie. It doesn't wait the putting aspect of it. It waits, he got to the green right there within 15 feet. That's a birdie chance. And that's what I base around most things when I do these crunchy numbers, whatever you want to call it. And then approach 15%. Obviously, it's always a matter. The winner's probably going to have good approach. Driving distance 10% because I do believe you hit it further, you have a better chance of winning. You have better clubs to go into the green. Even if you're in the rough, it's going to be easier to get it out, even though it shouldn't be that hard this week. Scrambling 10%, and then short game 10%, which weights around the green and putting combined. So that's my model. Off the tee and opportunities gained, the big 1-2 double whammy right there, Dylan.
Yeah, obviously we have a little bit of a different strategy here. And like you said, this is not necessarily to say that one strategy is correct, one strategy is incorrect. Like you said, many different types of games can win at this course. You are specifically looking for one that hits it a little that hits it a little bit better off the tee than I am. I'm looking more at approach. I'm curious to see how that affects our DraftKings evaluations here. And that being said, let's hop right into it at the 10K range. Like always, we got our ticker going along the bottom here with the pricing. We have Dustin Johnson priced at 11,200, John Rahm at 10,900, Rory McIlroy 10,600, and Xander Schauffele 10,300. Not a lot of guys in this 10K range this week. Only 4 of them. We had Brooks Koepka, who was originally supposed to be in that 10K range, dropped out of the tournament. So hope he gets well. Dropped out with a knee injury. What are your thoughts initially on this 10K range? I'm about to go fix my lights. Sorry, I got a makeshift studio this week. I'm down in Florida myself. It's like I'm traveling with the tour down in Florida.
He's following the tour on that. He's on the tour swing in Florida.
While I'm fixing my setup here, my makeshift setup, what are your thoughts on the 10K range?
Yeah. Honestly, my initial thought was that I can just immediately go to the 9K range and be very content with my lineup construction. But in terms of the 10K range, obviously DJ is going to lead the way, even with his subpar World Golf Championship results, where he was just, didn't do well at all. Finished 54th there in a no-cut event, obviously in the bottom tier over there. He lost 3 strokes off the tee. Unlike him, that's the first time he lost over 1 in I don't even know, 30 events, 20 events. So that's clearly an outlier. Expect DJ to bounce back. Love Rahm too, but he's kind of like Rory right now. He's playing that great golf, obviously. You trust him, but can he get those 4 rounds together? And I want to make a point about Rory. He said after this week, like, what's missing from his game? He felt good this week, but there's always that 1.5, 2 rounds where he's just been, lost it. Yesterday on Sunday, he comes into the day 4 back of the leader. I think he was 7 under. Leader was 11. I think Westwood was leading going to Sunday. He gets the whole 6, and he just gets in the water two times, and then he's taking his 5th shot from 244 yards. I don't know. He said he just he needs a spark somehow. Where's the spark going to come from? That's what he said. He says he's kind of been out of it in terms of just mentally, I guess, and maybe playing wise too in terms of the spark. Maybe he gets it this week. Obviously, winning the Players was one of his biggest goals of golf, and he won it 2 years ago. So that concludes that for him. Outside of that, my first thing is just I can easily construct a lineup out of these 9K range, and then I don't have to dip down deep into the 6s, which we'll discuss later. That's my first look at that, Dylan. I don't know if you agree with that, but we see some big names in this 9,000 range. It's 10,000 range is obviously elite, but this is what I love about this week. You get such a big player pool, you can do so many more constructions and still feel good about it.
Yeah, I think that you made a few really, really good points here. I think that here's what my initial take on the 10K range is that I'm not going to touch it. And I think that's obviously it's Monday, things can change, but right now I am not liking the 10K range. I think it's interesting. You're not going to see significant ownership really on any of these guys. And I think the reason why is because all of them are coming off a pretty poor performance at a concession, except for Rory, who played Arnold Palmer this week as well. And, he played pretty decently other than Sunday, I think. But yeah, I mean, look, I expect a lot of them to bounce back. I think Dustin Johnson will probably bounce back from that poor performance. In his last tournament. I think John Rahm will bounce back, but I'm not really. I like to use Dustin Johnson and John Rahm on a lot tougher courses, I should say. Ones maybe where driving distance matters a lot. Ones that are just tougher. Like Rahm, I feel like just grinds out these tough courses. Same with Dustin Johnson. And I just think that a lot of players are going to be able to play well here. I mean, players, it's the Players Championship. You usually see really good scores here for the most part. And then I typically stay away from Xander, at least recently, just because he usually is chalky. He usually, doesn't win. He's always right there. And honestly, if I'm taking a guy in the 10K range, I want them to win. And I'm not sure the winner's equity is there for Xander. I mean, we haven't seen it from him in almost 2 years now. Looks like he's not going to come in with that huge chalky ownership this week. So you know what?
Which could be a plus.
Which honestly, I have it written down here. I said if that continues, and like you said, we're looking at ownership projections from Fantasy National Golf on Monday. This could change significantly by the time Wednesday hits. But if he stays in the very low ownership, maybe I do get up to Xander as that lowest 10K range guy. But I think unless Xander stays significantly low owned, which I'm not sure I buy at this point, because the public loves Xander always. I think Rory might be my favorite from this range. And I really think he may have found something the last 2 tournaments. Approach was really good last week at the Arnold Palmer, gained 3.8 strokes there. Obviously, former winner here, won in 2019. I think Rory may have found something, and I'm hoping that he could continue it. Maybe build on it and finally, get a win here. It seems like it's been, it feels like it's been a really long time for him. So I think if I had to choose one right now, it'd be Rory, unless Xander comes in with that ridiculously low ownership, then I could possibly get there at the lowest 10K. But right now I'm planning on full fading the 10K range and going down to the 9K range, which I absolutely love. And that being said, let's get right into the 9K range. We have Justin Thomas ranked at 9,900, Bryson DeChambeau at 9,700, Webb Simpson at 9,500, Colin Morikawa 9,400, Victor Hovland at 9,300, Patrick Cantley at 9,200, Tony Finau at 9,100, and Patrick Reed at 9K. So what are your thoughts on this 9K range, and who are you looking to as your early leans here?
Well, personally, I can't remember a time where Justin Thomas was sub 10. It's definitely been a while. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but look, Justin Thomas last week or 2 weeks ago, he didn't play Arnold Palmer. 2 weeks ago at the World Golf Championship, listen to this. He gained 9.5 strokes gain approach. That's his second best strokes gain approach as far as the database goes. He lost 5.9 strokes off the tee, his worst off the tee performance as far as the database goes. Played well around the green as he usually does. Putting is obviously a little streaky, but fine there right now. Tee to green well. Finished 15th there. So, you know what? I mean, you got to assume he fixes the drive. I think I saw on Instagram earlier was playing well today or the practice round. He's feeling good about his game as well. So my eye just initially gravitated towards a 9.9 Justin Thomas from the 9,000 range. Obviously, Bryson maybe a little bit underpriced in terms of, I guess the DraftKings pricing was made before the final day at Bay Hill last week.
It's been out for I think a few days now. Yeah.
But you get a sub 10% potentially Bryson. You maybe have to look at that. Obviously, there's a hangover question coming into the following week that he's won. There's rarely any repeat winners on tour, but you got to assume like Bryson's he's more probably the hardest worker on tour right now. You want to win a Players. But of course, Webb, great wedge guy, who ranks pretty high in my model. That's towards the upper 9,000 range. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so upper 9K range. I think that, obviously Justin Thomas is the first one that pops to mind. You see Justin Thomas at 9K. I know he's on DraftKings this week at 22-1, could be pretty appealing. Like you said, Justin Thomas really, obviously had that awful tournament at Genesis where he pretty much lost everywhere, and then goes on to concession at the WGC and has one of the most bizarre performances you'll ever see. I know you mentioned it, minus 5.9 strokes gained off the tee. So, I mean, he lost a ton there. And then 9.5 strokes gained approach. He's actually lost off the tee in 3 of his last 4 performances. Honestly, do I think that that's going to continue? I don't know. I don't think it does, though. I can't see Justin Thomas like struggling for this long. And even if he does struggle off the tee, if he gets that minus 5.9 at concession, if he gets that up to like -1, what does he finish? Top 3? Like that's how good his approach was. So I'm not too worried about that, because if he just has a decent driving week, then I don't think that that's going to play any, it's not going to have a huge factor. Justin Thomas is a guy that ranks really high in my model this week, ranks 11th. Strokes gained approach over his last 24 rounds is ranked 6th. And then I mentioned the wedge game, proximity 125 to 150, proximity 100 to 125. In terms of 125 to 150, which is the second most common shot on this course, second most common approach, he ranks 6th in that the last 24 rounds. He also ranks 13th in par 4s, 450 to 500. There are 5 holes in that range. I think that there's a lot of key stats, that work out for Justin Thomas. And obviously, JT's one of the best players on tour. I think he'll bounce back off the tee, and I think he could have a very huge week. You mentioned Webb. I like Webb a lot this week. Obviously, Webb's a former winner here, won in 2018. Any short course that is huge on wedge game, huge on approach, that is Webb Simpson's bread and butter, and we know this. He's probably going to play well this week. I like him a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of people have the same opinions as us, and you're probably going to see guys like Justin Thomas and Webb Simpson high owned this week. That being said, make sure that you just pivot ownership in other places, do things a little bit more differently, because, look, I think that these guys are probably going to be must-owns this week. I will definitely be owning both of them. But, we mentioned both of those guys. You mentioned Bryson. I probably will not go to Bryson simply because it's a back-to-back week. But honestly, my question here with Bryson is, if he's coming in with low ownership, is that a play that you have to do? That, like, you may have to if he's coming in that cheap with low ownership. But again, it's so hard to repeat on tour 2 weeks in a row. I also don't know if this is a Bryson course. That being said, like, the way Bryson is plays some weeks, it doesn't matter what the course is. Like, he's just Bryson. But yeah, that's something I'll monitor and come back to. Right now, I'm saying it's a no for me with Bryson and a yes for me with JT. and Webb Simpson. But let's talk about this mid 9K range, which I also love. You got guys like Colin Morikawa at 9,400, who ranks first in my model this week. Anytime you weight approach heavily and ball striking, Colin Morikawa is going to rank all the way up at the top. In the last 24 rounds, Colin Morikawa first in strokes gained approach, second in strokes gained ball striking, sixth in par fours, 450 to 500, fourth in greens and regulations gain, 15th proximity 200 plus, first in proximity 125 to 150, 19th proximity 100 to 125. So anytime the approach game is very important, like this week, Colin Morikawa is going to come up high in that model. Obviously, Victor Hovland ranks fifth in my model, also playing really, really good golf lately. Two young guys who I think could play really well this week. And Patrick Cantlay ranked right below both them at 9,200, who I honestly kind of forgot about going into this week as he was nails and then he withdrew from, I believe, the WGC out of nowhere. I was huge on him going into that week, and then he just withdrew on Wednesday night. Now he's back. So what are your thoughts on those guys? I honestly, I like all three of them to start, and I think that Morikawa is my priority, but I could honestly get to all three.
It's hard to go wrong with any of those guys, as you mentioned. Obviously, Morikawa, he's a winner. He's won three times since like July. The workday in the summer at Memorial, Jack's Course, all these plays, PGA Championship, and then he won last week or 2 weeks ago. Can't go wrong with that. Probably the best iron player on tour right now, him and JT, and I guess Dustin too. But my eye gravitated toward Cantlay at 9.2. He withdrew from the World Golf Championship. Usually doesn't play back-to-back weeks. He's like that type of guy. Doesn't play back-to-back weeks. Definitely doesn't play three times in a row. Finished second at the Amex, third at the AT&T, and 15th at the Genesis. And then he withdrew from the World Golf Championship. Cantlay is a great play this week. He's hitting on all cylinders. There's absolutely zero weakness in his game. He consistently gains around the green. The last time he lost strokes around the green was the PGA Championship in August. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 11, 12 tournaments since then, gained consistently in basically every category. Cantlay's, I think, a pretty big bargain at 9.2 when you look at maybe the guys that are around him or the upper eights. But I think Cantlay, you're going to pay that higher ownership tag for him. I assume he's probably going to be like maybe 20% owned. I haven't looked at the projections yet. I don't usually do it on Monday, but that's a guy that probably will warrant a high ownership. In single entry lineups, I'm probably definitely going to play a lot of Cantlay, especially off a little bit of rest as well, which great for him, assuming everything's fine and he's not dehydrated again and he doesn't have any stomach cramps as he said he did. I think it's definitely a Cantlay week.
Yeah. Again, you can't go wrong with any of these guys, but this 9K range is just so rich with talent this week, so rich with value. How could you go away from it? I'm going to so in terms of lineup construction, I'm probably going to try to jam 2 to 3 of these guys in my lineup this week.
Maybe even 3.
Even at high ownership, as long as you could find guys, if you jam in 3 of them, which I was already playing around with it, and it is feasible to put Justin Thomas, Webb Simpson, and Morikawa in your lineup. It's feasible to put Webb Simpson, Morikawa, and Cantlay in your lineup. It's feasible to put 3 of them. You're just probably going to have to dip into the low 7s and 6s the rest of the way. All I'm going to say for advice there is if you decide to do that, you better make sure that you are taking low-owned guys, at least two low-owned guys out of your next 3 after that.
And of course, what it depends what type of contest you play. In the big,
right,
full-on tournaments, it would be better, but maybe you're playing with your friends in a single entry, 10 people. So ownership at that point won't matter as much. So everything's relative, but of course you don't want to pay high ownership guys on 6,000, 7,000 guys they're just such big fluctuation week to week down there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm assuming guys are playing in. Let's say I'm assuming when I'm saying this, I'm assuming you're playing in a million.
Oh yeah, the Millie Maker, which
is this week on DraftKings. So look, if you're playing in that, you got to differentiate yourself somehow. So just make sure to do that. But yeah, looking at the rest of the 9K right now, not looking at Finau or Reed. Usually I'm always on Finau. Not huge on him this week. I would just rather go to some of those other guys that we spoke about.
Yep, and that concludes it on the 9,000 range. So you could definitely construct. I'm looking at it right now on the monitor. 3 guys in the 9,000 range. Maybe take a high 7,000 range and then just go to the high 6s, and that does it. You just avoid the 10,000 range and get maybe, that's what I love about this week. These fields, you really get a full player pool. You really can manipulate it, and it's really great to see. And then this 8,000 range is headlined by Scotty Scheffler at 8.9, Berger at 8.8. Maybe I would think Berger would be the top guy here, as he's won 2 times since the restart. Matsuyama, who shot the course record last year, at 8.7, and then Spieth at 8.6, who, great that he's playing well. But my initial thing when I saw Spieth this week, he's been so streaky off the tee, water in play everywhere. It's really, every week I feel like it's still a gamble every week. He's the only golfer that can consistently play well by doing this poorly off the tee. Like, just who he is, I guess, and that's the best way to describe it. It's who he is.
Yeah, and then the rest of the 8K range, you have Tyrell Hatton 8.5, Paul Casey 8.4, Sungjae Im 8.3, Matt Fitzpatrick 8.2, Adam Scott 8.1, and Jason Day 8K flat. So who are you looking at in this 8K range? I think you bring up first I want to start off with Spieth, because I think you bring up an interesting point. Clearly, everyone feels the same way as you with Spieth, because he's bringing in low ownership every week despite him playing well. He's had 3 top 5s in his last 4 tournaments, despite playing like this off the tee. I'm a Jordan Spieth fan this week because it looks like we're going to be able to get a discount on ownership with him this week. Again, it's very early in the week, but right now on Fantasy National Golf, Jordan Spieth coming in at only 7.8% ownership, which is insane. I mean, you never see that for a guy who's finished in the top 5, 3 of his last 4 tournaments. Usually, you get guys who, weigh, recent performance a lot more, in these huge contests, like in the Millie Maker, like DraftKings. And you wouldn't think Spieth would be this low owned, but it looks like it may happen again. Now, you want to know why Spieth is still placing so high. It's because he's gaining every single place except for, off the tee. Yeah. He's gained last tournament at the Arnold Palmer, 5.5 strokes gained off the tee. He actually lost strokes on, I should say not approach, not off the tee. 5.5 strokes gained approach. Then he actually lost strokes gained approach at Genesis, but still managed to finish 15th. He's just like, it's either something's always on fire for him. It's either the irons, the putter. Like, he always is able to gain in one area so much that it overcomes everything else. And I think that's a major strength of Spieth, that if he magically figures out the tee, then he could be unstoppable again. Like, that's just the way it is. Again, I think you bring up a very good point with driving accuracy this week. And there is water pretty much in play every hole. And I think it's interesting. I did a little bit of research. I was like, all right, doesn't seem like it would be a Spieth course based on that info, based on the fact that he is not very good, off the tee, driving accuracy here. He has missed the cut at the Players 4 of the last 5 times he's played in it, which is interesting. Yeah. I don't want to overweight tournament history. And I don't think I'm going to, because I think I'm going to probably get the Spieth at this low ownership with the way he's playing. But that is definitely concerning, and it makes you think, well, maybe this course is just not set up for a guy like him. Yeah,
personally, I as myself, I don't weight course history that much. I think it's every year is independent. Maybe there's been outliers. Just course history, I don't weight that much. Sure, for some guys it may matter. For Spieth, I don't think it matters. He's just that good of a golfer, even though he hasn't been playing well before this newly found run he's been having. Personally, I'm staying away from him just because I can feel more confident with other guys around this range. I just look at, I weight off the tee, strokes gained off the tee, 30% in this specific model that I was playing with. On Fantasy National, he's 141st in the field off the tee, which just plummets his entire ranking. Obviously, he can have such a hot putter, such hot irons. Who knows? Maybe he holes out again, like he does every other week. Have a hole in one, holes out for eagle. I think at Pebble
Beach,
Beach,
yeah.
literally everything like that. Insane. Obviously that boosts his DraftKings points. But 141st off the tee in his last 50 rounds. Per the weight I assigned, I'd rather, maybe go to a Tyrrell Hatton, who's just more consistent than him. By the way, Hatton this past week, the previous winner at Arnold Palmer at Bay Hill, awful Thursday, really good Friday, really good Saturday, awful Sunday, but that's fine because everyone else played awful Sunday. Not even that awful, probably played average Sunday in terms of the field. I would love to go to Hatton again. I think he's a great golfer. He doesn't get the much love that people around him get. Comes in first, 10th, I'm sorry, not first, in opportunities gained the last 50 rounds, 10th in approach last 50 rounds. Scrambling has not been that good. Pretty low on that. But I will be playing Tyrrell Hatton this week. Spieth I won't be. Scheffler's interesting at the top of the range. Very just solid across the board. Really no clear weakness in his game. Obviously he hasn't won, so he's still searching for that first win, which I assume hopefully will come soon. He's a very consistent golfer. Those are the three people that struck my eye right away. Haven't really looked at the lower eights with Scott and Day, but what do you think about that, Dylan?
Yeah, so I'm actually probably looking a little bit away from where you are, but I think that this shows that the 8K range is also very strong with the 9K range, and it's just another reason to go with a somewhat balanced lineup this week. That being said, guys, I'm looking at Berger 8,800, just a guy who's, again, he's won twice since the restart. He has been just rock solid pretty much across the board. One at Pebble Beach at the AT&T Pro-Am. Then you have Matsuyama, who hasn't played great recently, but looks like he may be starting to come on a little bit more than he has been. Just to look at his last few, he has 2 top 20 finishes in his last 2 tournaments, 18th at the Arnold Palmer this past weekend, and then finished 15th in the WGC. We mentioned before about Matsuyama. We mentioned the fact that we mentioned him, shooting that course record last year and then it being cut off. So I thought it was interesting. I said, well, maybe Matsuyama's game fits this course really well. Well, I mentioned a few of the, important stats. Strokes gained par 5. He ranks 14th in that over the last 24 rounds. He ranks 4th in proximity 125 to 150 over the last 24 rounds. So just, he look, a lot of the other key stats that I mentioned, he's not great. And obviously his short game is pretty poor. Can't putt for his life. But those 2 areas, the wedges and then strokes gained par 5s, 2 really important stats this week. So I think I could possibly look at Matsuyama. I mentioned Spieth, who I'm a fan of here. 2 other guys who are interesting. You have Paul Casey. Paul Casey, obviously his approach is great, so I'm going to like him here at 8,400. Played pretty solid last week at the Arnold Palmer. Sungjae Im is an interesting case because, really good off the tee, but his approach has been completely lost lately. But loves that Bermuda grass as well. Loves playing in Florida. Think he could have a decent week. And then also another guy that I may fit into my lineup is Jason Day, a former winner here. Has some pretty promising stats. Just in recent tournaments, recent years, to think that he could possibly play well here again. Currently in his last 24 rounds, he ranks 15th in strokes gained par 4, 450 to 500. But Jason Day is probably the lowest of my priorities here.
Day also ranks first in scrambling as well. So basically, get Jay Day in the bunker, you feel completely fine. He's hit some great shots out of the bunker also, going up and down this past weekend. So I feel confident about that. I like Day also this week. I really do. At the lower 8.
Yeah, I want to get into the 7K range, but if I had to, rank my priorities of the 8K range, I think I'm probably going to look at that high 8K range to start off with Berger, Matsuyama, Spieth, grab one of those guys from there. But I also do like Casey as next up. And then Im and Day are my next priorities there if we're doing it by tiers. But let's move on to the 7K range here. Not going to read off the whole 7K range because we have 154 golfers this week. We have a ton of guys in the 7K range. I want to know who you're looking at this week. I think that, the first guy at the top of the board, Tommy Fleetwood, presents a interesting case.
Yeah, Fleetwood was in contention Sunday, came in 8 under, 3 back of the lead. You always hear the announcers say on Sunday, if the conditions are hard, maybe the Euro guys can, step it up. Lee Westwood was that Euro guy. He played phenomenal Sunday, just didn't get the win. He was right there. Easily could have won. Fleetwood did not play well. Just guy can't make a putt, honestly. Just can't make a putt. Literally, I think he had so many 12-footers the entire weekend. A 7-footer, 6-footer, just couldn't make anything. He would save par a lot of times, but he couldn't hit those birdie putts. I would play Fleetwood this week, but my eyes just gravitated towards Neiman at 7-7. Neiman's an amazing golfer. He really is. He's been playing excellent as well. Comes in 7th driving distance, 12th off the tee. Irons are fine, 36. Scrambling's been better than used to be, and comes in 9th right now in my model that I did on Fantasy National. But look, the guy's been very solid. You probably will see 12 to 15% ownership on him, maybe even higher at this low price. But I look at Neiman at 7-7, and I see maybe some of the guys above him. Rose 7-8. Why is Rose ranked higher pricing wise than Neiman? And especially now, obviously with Rose with a WD this past weekend mid round on Saturday, I think it was, with a bad back, he said. But nothing in Rose's game has been shown to be better than Neiman right now. So it's been kind of questionable in terms of that pricing. But my eye just initially gravitated toward Neiman at 7-7. And my eye gravitated towards Billy Horschel also at 7-7, just because the guy's been a clown recently. Played exceptionally well in the final pairing at the World Golf Championship. And then he trips the fans at the Arnold Palmer or whatever it was, back and forth, tossing his club in the air, everything. I don't know. He's good entertainment to watch. So I just like, oh, Billy Horschel's back in the field. Not we'll see. But Neiman at 7-7.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point about Neiman. I don't know if I tweeted this morning. I said, DraftKings, you got to stop pricing Neiman down here at 7-7. All of a sudden, every week he gets 20% ownership because he's down at 7-7. Why Joaquin Neiman is your he should be your mid 8 right now, the way he's playing. I mean, he's been unbelievable. You get him at 7,700. I don't think that's something you could pass up. Just to give you some stats on Neiman, who ranks 18th in my model this week. Neiman ranks 15th in his last 24 rounds in ball striking, 11th off the tee, 12th strokes gained par 5, 20th strokes gained around the green, and 6th proximity, 100 to 125. Obviously, Neiman's been really, really good lately. I think that he's a good play this week. Also, I think Tommy Fleetwood, I mentioned that he's an interesting case. Look, Tommy Fleetwood, he looked completely lost. Then he went to the European Tour for a little bit, played decently there, comes back, doesn't play great at the WGC at Concession, and all of a sudden this week, out of nowhere, he gains like four strokes in approach, or 4.5 strokes in approach, something we haven't seen from him in a really long time. So maybe Tommy found something there. I think that he is probably going to be in play for me this week at 7,900. Another guy up here in the high 7K range that I think is interesting. Two guys, actually. First, we'll start with Louis Oosthuizen at 7,800. Louis has been so solid recently, and my eye always kind of glosses over him. But I don't think you could go wrong with him. Obviously, he's always going to gain a ton of strokes putting. Like he's literally first in strokes gained putting over his last 24 rounds. 9th in strokes gained around the green, 6th in strokes gained on par 4s, 450 to 500, 23rd on strokes gained par 5s. Guy's short game is just so good that it makes up for like any other flaw, and it's going so well for him right now. His recent performances have been pretty good. Finished 6th at the WGC, 11th at the Waste Management. He's killing it right now, and I think that Oosthuizen presents a pretty good option at 7-8. And another guy who I think has a little bit of Spieth syndrome in him, in terms of a guy who's playing really, really well right now, who's still being overlooked by everyone. It's Max Homa. Max Homa ranks 4th in my model this week, and for good reason. I mean, he's literally killing it across the board. But if you go to ownership here on Fantasy National Golf, which I'm looking at right now, Max Homa only projected to come in at 8.7% ownership. Again, it's Monday. I'm not sure I completely believe that, but if he's coming in sub 9%, the guy is 14th in strokes gained approach, 29th in ball striking, first strokes gained par 5s, 23rd strokes gained par 4s, 450 to 500, 17th in putting, 7th in proximity, 200 plus, 30th in proximity, 125 to 150, 10th in proximity, 100 to 125, all over his last 24 rounds. That is something that he ranks fourth in my model because of all that. He's been playing unbelievable. His approach has been great. His putting has been great. His overall game has been very, very good recently. Obviously, he got that win at the Genesis, his hometown tournament. I think if Max Homa comes in ranked, comes in owned that low, he's somebody you have to look at.
Yeah, he's definitely someone to look at. He's playing great golf. Obviously, the win at Riviera was iconic for him. Just life-changing win right there for Max. Played well this past week too. Obviously didn't win, but I think he finished a T10. Great week there. So definitely got to look at him with that. And Louis, I like Louis at Bay Hill this past weekend, but he withdrew before the tournament. Pretty late withdrawal too. Some people were mad on Twitter and the DFS universe. So people had a couple WDs in their lineup that just didn't check in time. I think PGA Tour Communications was a little late tweeting it out or something like that. What that was about. I don't even know why he withdrew. I don't know if he gave a reason, but he's back in the field this week, and he's just a consistent guy to trust. Very limited bogeys, great putting, just solid across the board with that. The mid 7,000s, I think my eye just initially, obviously there's guys here that are very good golfers and provide a lot of DraftKings points. Connors is one of them at 7.4. Obviously had the lead Thursday, Friday. Hits his irons extremely well, obviously. Gets a ton of birdie opportunities, so he ranks 13th on mine. Burns at 7.3, that's worth talking about as well. Ranks 4th, gets a ton of birdie opportunities. Seems like every time I look at the tracker, he's like 15 feet from the hole, every hole for birdie. So Burns has to be that. Scrambling is a little bit weak for him, so he's always got that one hole where not good. But at 7.3, that's pretty low, in my opinion, for someone that's playing pretty well like Burns. I know he missed the cut at Arnold Palmer, but he's been playing good golf, and that win's going to come, that new win. He's won before. No, he has not, never won before. But that win's going to come soon, just like the win's going to come for other guys around here. Zalatoris 7.6, that's going to come soon, obviously. So there's a lot of talent down here, which is why I'm going to construct my lineups personally, not in all entries, but in some entries at the 9,000 range, and then I can get these lower tier 7,000 range and still fit them in with three guys in the 7,000 in the 9s. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Will Zalatoris. He's a guy I've been owning a lot of recently, but personally, I just rather would have Homa at probably lower ownership. So probably not going to get to Zalatoris. Now, also looking at the mid sevens here, you got Corey Connors. Finally, the guy came through for me. The guy's been ranking high in my model for all these tournaments. Ranked second again in my model this week. My stance on Corey Connors, yes, he'll be in consideration for a lineup or two this week. Do I trust him to put together two performances in a row like that? Probably not. So I'll probably not, I'm not really leaning towards getting to him. Sam Burns is a guy that I'm hoping people kind of go away from with his, poor performance last week at the Arnold Palmer, missing the cut. Absolutely killed me, the guy. I had him in, 3 of my 4 lineups to 75%, and he missed the cut. So, I mean, pretty much shot all my lineups. That being said, Burns is really good. Obviously, a couple of bad performances, a couple of bad rounds is not going to change that for him. So yeah, I think Burns is mispriced, and I like him at 7.3. Tringali's basically been like a free square lately. The guy's been unbelievable. He ranks 6th in my model. I could be looking at Tringali again, even though he'll probably come in with high ownership. And same with Chris Kirk, another guy who's been playing really well. And I played him last week at Arnold at 7,000 flat, ranks 15th in my model. Those are guys I like at 7K range. Like I said, probably leaning towards these guys at the top more so. Homa, Neiman, Louis, Fleetwood. Over the guys in the mid to low, but I do think I'll get to Burns at 7.3, possibly Tringali and Kirk as well.
Yeah, well said. I think that we can move on to the 6s right now. Ton of golfers there, obviously, so we're not going to headline every golfer down here, and maybe you don't even use any of the 6,000 range, depending on your line of construction. But that is totally up to you. To lead the 6,000 range, it's a combination of Keegan and the Johnny, a local guy, Harmon, the lefty, Seabass Munoz, Wyndham Clark, who just kills the ball off the tee in terms of driving distance. He's 5th in driving distance, so he completely kills the ball off the tee. Keegan's an interesting guy just because his approach has been so good, and he is playing well. And he knows he's playing well. It's obvious. 22nd at the waist, and he was like first, I think, some point on Friday, Saturday. Finished 10th last week. He actually gained strokes putting last week, so congratulations to him. That's the first time he gained since
you know what that means. Abort.
October 4th. That means abort.
Yeah,
no, which is a good point. It's very easy to fade.
Keegan never gained stroke putting. Like we always have said, all he has to do is just go like -1 putting for him to have a good week. He gained strokes putting. That makes me think that he's about to have a bad week putting, just because he just doesn't string together.
Yeah, and that's a smart way to think, because regression obviously has to come. He gained 1.4 strokes putting last week. The last time he gained over 1.4 was Sanderson Farms, where he finished 4th in October. And then we're going back to June of the Charles Schwab. So he never gains, obviously, putting. He usually loses a lot.
Right.
But again, some guy with so good irons you got to look at.
I think it's a good way to think, because how are you going to play a guy that's so unreliable? I mean, yeah, his approach is great, but again, he placed well mostly because he had an abnormal putting week. If once his putting goes back down to earth, you can't expect that from him. But I want to talk about a few other guys in the 6K range. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that like this is not setting up for like a stars and scrubs for me this week, because I think I like a decent amount of guys in this 6K range, starting with Kevin Streelman at 6'8". Streelman, he's 25th in my model, and mainly because of a few stats that come to mind with him. 14th in fairways gained. Obviously, we said driving accuracy is going to be very important this week with all the water. 11th greens in regulation gain. 12th in proximity 125 to 150. 29th in proximity 100 to 125. Streelman, obviously good wedge player also. So I like Streelman. And here's my dart throw long shot of the week. I'm going to be on Sal Vetri's channel later in the week on Wednesday to talk about everything golf, bets, DFS. I'm also going to have a DFS. Not a DFS. I'm also going to have a betting video tomorrow on my YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. But I'll definitely be highlighting this guy. Ryan Moore at $6,800. If you look at Ryan Moore, he has not been good recently at all. Yes, he finished 26th in his last event at the AT&T Pro-Am. But the last 4 events before that, he missed the cut. Waste Management, Farmers, Amex, and then going back all the way to August, he missed at Wyndham. So he had 4 missed cuts in a row and then finishes 26th at the AT&T Pro-Am. Why do I like him this week? Simply because I think he fits this course very well. 27th strokes gained approach, 22nd ball striking, 24th off the tee, 4th in fairways gained, 26th in greens in regulation game, 1st in proximity 125 to 150. Again, the second most common approach shot here. Wedges are going to be important. Also ranks 15th in proximity 100 to 125. Ryan Moore could present a very good low owned option here at 6,800. A guy that's a little bit off the map completely, especially because he's just been missing the cut so much. But I think he fits this course very well.
Yeah, he definitely does. I haven't looked at him recently. I feel like he's just, overlooked at in terms of is Ryan Moore in the field, and I guess you find that answer out on Sunday if he's in somewhat of contention in terms of DFS or whatever. But yeah, Ryan Moore could be the play there. I'm sure you're going to get pretty low ownership there. I can't imagine it being more than 4 or 5% owned. I'd be surprised if he is. But yeah, I do always love the stars and scrubs as well, and I'm sure I will play some this week like that. But to get the combination of guys in the 6,000 range that they can do very well. I know Luke List, we always mention, he's 15th in opportunities gained, so a ton of birdie chances. Harold Varner, when is he going to get his first win? He always has a ton of opportunities. Griot, Kyle Stanley, we all like. So there's guys down here that we just always play, and maybe that 1 week all of them click. I mean, that's really the goal, obviously. Worth mentioning, Johnny Vegas at 6'3". He comes in 6th off the tee last 50 rounds when I weighed at 30%. Drives it far as well. So who knows about him? Awful, obviously, short game and scrambling.
He finished very high last year. I believe he
did finish very high. He finished, let's see, tournament history, Johnny Vegas. He finished T3, finished T41 in 18, cut in 2017, T57, T42. So, 4 or 5 cuts past 5 years. So that's the type of guy that, maybe glances out as an outlier down here. and ownership, I'm sure, won't be sky high as well as 6.3K range guy. But yeah, outside of that, I'm really not going to go anywhere below 6.3 if I do play Vegas at 6.3. Definitely not playing Doc again this week. We've lost too many lineups with Doc that ruined 5 out of 5s. I know it will come soon, but maybe not this week. I'm at Sawgrass, but that's where I'm looking at that 6 range. Just those typical lists, Scrio. Maybe what's up with Cameron Champ? What's up with him?
He's lost. He's completely lost. Like, he's lost.
So, but let's see why though. Why is he lost? Let's see. Putting obviously is awful.
He's losing everywhere pretty much. Like that. Ever since the Masters.
He's never lost off the tee over a year.
He never loses off the tee. Literally, like, never. And just because, like Bryson, if you hit the ball that far, you're not going to lose off the tee. But pretty much everywhere else around the green, putting is a complete disaster.
Yeah, he hasn't gained strokes putting over 1 since the PGA in August, where he finished 10th. So obviously putting's determinant of his finishing, as is most guys. But I don't know. One of these weeks, maybe it comes along. Maybe we'll do some investigative work on Champ. We'll view his social medias. We'll see what he's up to, because who knows? Maybe it comes around one week. And what's his ownership projection right now? Let's see. Cameron Champ ownership projections on Monday. 0.5%. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think, eventually he's going to play well. Like, he has it in him. But a couple of guys I'm also looking at down here, dart throws, Matthew Neesmith, another, again, a guy that we've gone to, missed the cut this past week at Arnold Palmer, but, great green and regulation guy, great approach guy. Down at 6,700. Brendan Steele, who in my opinion is the same person as Kevin Streelman, confuse them all the time. Another good fairways gained, green and reg, off the tee type player. Ranks 27th in my model. Henrik Norlander ranks 8th in my model, down at 6.7. I'm sure he'll be popular this week. 12th in stroke gained approach, 9th in ball striking, 10th green and regulations gained, 10th proximity 125 to 150. And then another guy, if I had to go long shot in the low 6s, I would say Doug Gim. Was playing really, really well this week and then shot an 81 on Sunday. Again, nobody shot well on Sunday. It was tough conditions, but obviously the 81 completely killed his placing. Ranks 41st in my model, just kind of decent across the board. 17th in proximity, 125 to 150. I think Gim is a little bit underpriced at 6.2. So if you wanted to go that low, if you need to go that low, I think him or Vegas, like you mentioned, could be good spots.
Yeah, that perfectly said. Gim 81. He played well outside of that, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that'll do it. We've gone through all the ranges here. It's the Players Championship this week. Really, really excited to get going. Once again, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @sports_Burd. Be sure to follow Glenn on Twitter at Goody_21. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you love NBA player props. That is a great, place to, have a community for NBA player props. We got a great Discord in there. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have NBA player prop podcasts each week. And then on my YouTube channel, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm doing NBA player prop shows as well. Obviously, today with the All-Star break, there are no NBA games until Wednesday. So really focusing in on this Players Championship. Tomorrow, I will have a Players Championship betting video out. Wednesday, I will be on Sal Vetri's YouTube channel talking about DFS and betting for the Players Championship. So I'm really, really excited for that. Excited to sit down, watch golf this week. What a great time we're entering into here. We got the players. We got conference tournaments this week for college basketball. We got Selection Sunday, less than a week away. And then the NCAA tournament already starting next week. And I got a lot of stuff planned for the
Masters.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff planned for the NCAA tournament next week. Obviously, we're going to go tons of shows for the Masters. It's going to be a good month coming up here of content. Once again, also be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. Be sure to check out Monkey Knife Fight, promo code DUDE50 for a 100% matchup bonus up to $50. You can check that out in the link below. Got anything else to say, Glenn?
That sums it up. Let's have a good week.
Yeah, I'm excited. Goodbye, everyone, and good luck with your DFS lineups this week.